The 21st century is defined by technology, and at its core lies the semiconductor chip. These chips power everything: phones, cars, military drones, and supercomputers. Control over chip design and production means control over economic and national security futures. This reality has thrust semiconductors into the heart of a fierce US-China rivalry. For years, the US and allies like Taiwan, South Korea, and the Netherlands led the advanced chip supply chain, while China remained the world's largest chip importer. China's dependence on foreign chips was a vulnerability, and both Washington and Beijing knew it. As China launched initiatives like Made in China 2025, it signaled a drive for technological independence. For the US, this was more than economic competition. It was a threat to military and global dominance. The contest over chips became a new kind of Cold War, fought with export controls and industrial policy, not tanks. The central question: who will control the foundational technology of our time? The US aimed to preserve its lead, China sought to break free from dependency. The humble chip became the battleground for global power. The stage was set for a high-stakes technological showdown. The US moved first, leveraging its dominance in the semiconductor supply chain to slow China's rise. Export controls became the weapon of choice, blocking Chinese access to advanced chips and manufacturing equipment. The first major target was Huawei, cut off from critical software and chips in 2019. The message: any Chinese tech giant could be next. Restrictions soon expanded, targeting a wide range of Chinese firms and research institutions. The US pressured allies, especially the Netherlands, to block sales of essential EUV lithography machines to China. The goal capped China's chip industry at older technology, preserving America's edge and limiting China's military modernization. These moves disrupted global supply chains and hurt US and allied companies' revenues. But the broader message to Beijing was clear: the US wasn't just competing, it was trying to block China's technological ascent. This perception fueled a powerful response in China. The strategy was a gamble, risking both economic fallout and a fierce Chinese countermove. The chip war was no longer just about business, it was about national survival. The US hoped to contain China, but the consequences would soon spiral far beyond Washington's control. The world watched as the stakes grew higher, the battle lines were drawn, and the race for chip supremacy intensified. The era of quiet interdependence was over. A new era of technological confrontation had begun. Under mounting US restrictions, China made a historic pivot. Beijing declared the era of relying on foreign chips was over. In August 2025, China announced it would cancel all foreign chip imports, a move that shocked the world. This was the culmination of years of pressure and a growing sense of technological siege. The decision was framed as essential for national sovereignty and security. Chinese firms could no longer trust access to foreign technology. The only solution: build a domestic supply chain immune to outside pressure. The announcement was a rallying cry for scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs. China would no longer be just an assembler, it would become a creator. The immediate challenge was immense. Domestic chips lagged behind imports. But Beijing accepted short-term pain for long-term independence. The great unplugging had begun, setting China on a new, uncertain path. The world braced for the fallout of this bold declaration. China's response was a full-scale national mobilization for chip self-sufficiency. The government supercharged its big fund, pouring hundreds of billions into every part of the semiconductor supply chain. Tax breaks, cheap loans, and fast-tracked construction fueled a domestic chip ecosystem. Major tech firms were required to buy local chips, even if they were less advanced. Talent became a top priority. Universities expanded microelectronics programs, and China lured engineers home from abroad. The state set the direction, but private and state-owned companies unleashed a wave of innovation and risk-taking. Thousands of new chip startups emerged, while giants like Alibaba and Tencent launched their own chip divisions. The effort was driven by both patriotic duty and economic opportunity. China was determined to break America's technological blockade, no matter the cost. The nation was all in, betting its future on semiconductor independence. The world watched as China raced to close the gap. China's chip drive produced new industry champions. SMIC, the nation's top chipmaker, became the face of China's push to catch up with TSMC and Samsung. Despite US restrictions, SMIC pushed the limits of available technology. Fabless design firms like HiSilicon and Unisoc created advanced chips for phones and AI, adapting to domestic manufacturing constraints. The ecosystem expanded to include homegrown equipment and software companies like Nora and AMEC, building critical chip-making tools. Even tech giants like Alibaba and Baidu jumped in, designing their own processors for cloud and AI. The drive for self-sufficiency spread across the industry, sparking a wave of innovation. China's chip sector was no longer just about catching up. It was about building something new. US pressure had become a catalyst for a domestic tech revolution. The chip arena had new contenders, and the global balance was shifting. China's investment paid off with real breakthroughs. In 2023, Huawei's Mate 60 Pro shocked the world with a 7-nanometer chip made by SMIC, using older equipment thought incapable of such feats. Chinese firms like YMTC advanced in memory chips, while others dominated production of mature essential chips for cars and appliances. But progress came with limits. Advanced chips were costly and less efficient without access to cutting-edge EUV machines. China's Achilles heel remained high-end manufacturing equipment and specialized materials, still dominated by the US, Japan, and Europe. Building a world-class ecosystem would take years. For every leap forward, bottlenecks persisted. China's progress was faster than many expected, but true self-sufficiency was still a distant goal. Money and political will alone couldn't solve every technical challenge. The chip race was a marathon, not a sprint. The world watched as China pressed on, undeterred. China's unplugging shattered the old interconnected chip industry. The world's largest chip market closed its doors, forcing companies and countries to rethink strategies. US and allied firms lost major revenue streams, slowing innovation and prompting new industrial policies. The US passed the CHIPS Act, Europe and Asia followed with their own subsidies. The era of globalized chip-making gave way to technological nationalism. Two rival tech ecosystems emerged, one led by the US and allies, the other by China. Companies and countries had to pick sides, and technology standards began to diverge. Decoupling raised costs and created inefficiencies but was seen as necessary for security. The smooth, globalized landscape was gone. The world now faced a fractured terrain of competing tech blocks. The chip war had redrawn the map of global technology. The chip war deepened global divisions, making technology a core battleground of US-China rivalry. Nations worldwide were pressured to align with either Washington or Beijing, not just on security, but on tech standards and supply chains. Many countries, especially in the global south, faced tough choices: adopt Chinese tech and risk US retaliation, or side with the US and lose access to China's market. Even US allies like the Netherlands and Japan suffered economic losses from export restrictions, straining alliances. The chip war accelerated the end of hyperglobalization, replacing it with a world driven by security and strategic autonomy. National interests now trumped economic efficiency. The struggle for chip supremacy became a proxy for a larger contest over the future world order. Would the US-led system endure, or would a multipolar world emerge? The tiny silicon chip had become a symbol of global power. The world was now divided by technology as never before. The US effort to contain China's tech ambitions had unintended consequences. Instead of crippling Beijing, it sparked a determined push for self-sufficiency, reshaping the global tech landscape. The world now faces two parallel tech universes, a US-led bloc at the cutting edge and a China-led bloc with a vast domestic market. This rivalry will define technological progress for years to come. The risks are real: fragmented supply chains, higher costs, and the danger of conflict. But competition could also drive new breakthroughs as both sides race to innovate. China's quest for workarounds may yield unexpected advances. The era of interdependence is over. Strategic competition is the new reality. The world watches to see who will control the technology that shapes the future. The chip war is far from over, and its outcome will define the 21st century.